Oh, we already got 26 people on this one.
So no, we are just basically some cities it's still a reduction. Less taxes, but so what kind of library am I? I brought one, and I saw that they had ours. But now I. We do want to see that here. Diane. Sorry, that was for Jan. Yes. People took this opportunity to know. We held it as long as they really, I hate to start until Steve says, okay. Also, though, I don't get. The schedule, like if you look at the whole schedule on the page, it says one time, but then if you click on the section, everything is 15 minutes later. So like, yours was supposed to start at 11 according to the thing as a whole, but if you click on your section, it's like. So we talked about these things. Are we ready, Steve?
Yeah.
We have power. Okay. I'm Diane Disbro. Scenic Regional. Thank you. You make me cry when I'm just getting started. For 5 more days, I was Scenic Regional Library. Wednesday, my last day. And I want to thank the cataloging people for switching session times with me because I had a family thing come up that I need to get back home for. So you're having me before lunch instead of Kate. Endless. Kate Endless. You're having only Diane before. So when this conference came up, I thought, what would be my last thing that I would want to say to everyone? And I would want to say transit list. So we're changing kind of a focus from the broad things we've been talking about already this morning to 3 specific things. And it worked when we sold the room. Yeah. And now it is not working. I feel validated because I just put in click as much as I know, there we go. Thank you, Katie. You may have to be up and down. So the transit list. Dismantling the chaos. You can see on there, Scenic borrowed 49,000 items last year. And we lent 36,000, so yes, we are a net borrower. For a total of 85,000 items just coming and going through my library. And things don't always arrive as we would want them to. So the transit list, you may not be familiar with this. In local administration, you can check on transit list to find the items going from your library and coming to your library. I put a picture there, administration, local administration, and then we have the transit from and to. Transit to, transit from. We'll point over here, even though some of you on the sides are looking on the other side. Sorry, I can't point in 3 places at once. So you can choose what library you want to show things coming from and going to. So this is Scenic Regional Library, the St. Clair branch. And you can set the dates of when you want to see things coming, when the start date is and when the end date is. I always recommend that you do the start date, the date of your migration. Then you don't have to think, okay, last time I looked at the transit list, did I look at January? Did I look at November? If you just choose your migration date to start with, then you've got your start date from way back to the dawn of time. Things should be arriving to your library within 2 weeks. And if you look at that report that Rogan sends out every month about transit, average transit times, mostly it is 2 weeks. Then you've got that outlier that wasn't found, didn't arrive for 59 days. That's because it got back on the shelf without getting checked in. You found it, you checked it in. It looks like it was in transit for 39 days, but it wasn't really.
Can you run this for parent organizations, or does it have to be a specific branch?
It has to be a specific branch because I was talking to somebody else about this earlier. Your library does not own anything. Scenic Regional Library does not own anything. There's nothing been cataloged to the Scenic Regional Library. It's all to the branches. So yes, we have to look at this 9 times.
Diane, the start date, I wanted to add that at first, we always used the day that we started resource sharing. And then learned that that's not the best date to choose, because as we see in the lists, sometimes things are triggered to transit before they've started resource sharing. So using your migration date is actually the best option.
Good point. Good point. Okay, let's see what happens. Nothing. Oh, it works. Okay, back here. Go back one. Oh, I did it. Oh, it's fantastic, but don't move because I'm not.
Okay.
If you don't know your migration date, which you might not, and your staff members might not because you had some turnover, you can go to the Missouri MoEvergreenLibraries.org. All the libraries are there with their migration dates.
And they're listed in order of migration.
Sometimes people want to know, and their previous ILS is also listed on that page. So you can see our first library, July 1st, 2012 was Poplar Bluff. You can sort this, it doesn't look like it's sortable, but you can sort this by library as well, so you can get these in alphabetical order. So.
You did it.
Transit 2. Now I sent around because I am old school, and if I go to a conference, I don't have paper to go home with, I feel like I've been gypped. So I sent around pink. Transit 2, transit from. So these things were in transit 2, the Owensville branch. My migration date and. Oh, I said things should be at your library, they should arrive within 2 weeks. But when you're looking at the transit list, choose the end date to be 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, because things do get kind of hung up sometimes. So when I do this, I usually look 4 weeks from previous from the day that I'm doing it. So there were 2 items going to Owensville between migration date and a month ago. And cause I knew you wouldn't be able to see this, so that's why I printed this, and you may need a magnifying glass to see it on the page as well. But and I took the owning library's names out, so I didn't want to embarrass anybody. But here's an item that's been going to Owensville since 2023. And I was running the report 4 weeks after February 2nd, 2024. So this item is not going to ever arrive at the Owensville location. And the other one on the example was from December of 2023. So there were two things that are out there in transit land somewhere.
I'm gonna try not to be this person and have 100 questions, I'm sorry. But so if you're running this every week or whatever, and it's 4 weeks, so why haven't those two books been on the list since that date?
They have been.
Okay,
They definitely have been on there every time the staff have checked this.
okay.
And what happens with those two people that have these books that are long in transit? She wants her book. So what to do when you find these things? They've been transiting forever. Contact the sending library, the lending library, and ask them if it got back on their shelf. Every one of us does this. You scan it, it triggers the transit, and you put it, I don't know, the phone rings. The patron fell down or is vomiting someplace. So you got interrupted, and you put the book on the shelving cart instead of in the transit cart. So now it's back on your shelf. So contact the owning library. Would you please check your shelf to see if it got back on the shelf? And they may say yes, and they scan it in, and guess what? It's transiting to you. Yeah, it will not have a new transit date because it still thinks it's on its way. So it does not update the transit date. Ask to contact the lending library to please check the shelf. If they don't find it, think of that lady in the previous slide who's crying because she wants her item. Try to find another target. Even if it's on the same record, then you'll have to force the hold because it'll say this patron already has a hold on this item. Force the hold, so she's got another item coming to her.
Wait, can you clarify something? Because my brain, I got stuck. My brain is still thinking about something you said. If they find it and they check it in, and it'll say it's transiting now, but your transit list is still gonna show the original transit date?
Yes.
Wouldn't there be a new timestamp on when the item was?
Status didn't change.
Yeah, the status hasn't changed because even if you did it the same day, and sometimes that does happen. You scan it at 11 o'clock and you find it sitting on the shelf and you scan it again, it's still gonna say 11 o'clock.
Because according to the system, that item still hasn't been seen since 2023 when it has been seen. We saw it that day. I don't like that.
Well, let's think about that and think about maybe if there's we can report a bug
Yeah.
that says, was scanned a week later, that we show it was in transit. There would have to be something intervening that couldn't there.
And there would have to be a change in, like a dual change in
Right,
status.
then we have to cancel that.
Yeah.
Cancel the
Yes, you could cancel the first transit and then
Yes.
if you did find it on the shelf, you could cancel that initial transit.
Right.
And then,
Check it in again.
Right.
yes.
I'm just thinking about the
Yeah,
timeline of things, and let's say it gets lost again in transit, and then now you don't know that it was found. It was lost and then found, and now it's lost again. You still think it was just a loss from the first time.
and if it's a different person working on the list, then they're gonna be calling that library again.
Yeah.
Again, until it gets there.
I think it would be cool if we had a little prompt when you did that would say you're checking something's already in transit and you'd like to update your transit.
Yes.
So then maybe I would-
See, someone from Equinox thinking about what a possible solution could be.
I'll write that up. If it says what you wanted to say. Cool, okay.
There you go. Excellent. So search the catalog, try to find another copy for your patron. Place a second hold. And now the patron has 2 copies of whatever coming to them. So I would recommend you put a note on the patron's account, an alert on the patron's account that says duplicate hold placed on whatever. Cancel unfilled hold when it gets filled. The worst that's gonna happen is well, no, that's not the worst. One thing that could happen is the patron could get 2 copies of something and then look at you like you're crazy because they say, I already got this. Which we've all had happen to us before too. But if you put an alert on the patron's account, then maybe staff will notice it and realize, oh, they picked up a copy of this. Now let's cancel the second hold. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any reason to not cancel that hold? Because I think we put a new hold on and then canceled that.
And cancel that. Yes, we are going to cancel.
Okay.
Yeah. If there is no other copy of the catalog, then consider traditional ILL or purchasing the item. And I see when
Your bottom line isn't there, and the bottom line is in red with 4 asterisks.
then when
That's important.
I created this one as a Google Slides and then I put it on a PowerPoint, so I've lost my drama.
And it says, Equinox also sends a monthly report of items on hold that have been long in transit.
So there you got 2 ways of checking the transits. And if you are really on top of things like some libraries are, when Equinox sends out that report, you've got nothing on there because you've already been taking care of your transits. You were just that cool. So try to be cool, like a library of your name, and keep on top of these things. But if you forget, then Equinox does send a report of long in transit holds, not just transits. Yes, ma'am.
This might be more of a workflow question, but I'm looking at our list and most of it is our items. So they've gone to Jeffco or wherever, they're done with it, they're sending it back. But now it's just MIA in the ether. And I guess I've never been clear on what the workflow is when it's our item that we just haven't gotten back and it's.
Yes, we will get to that too.
Okay. I'll wait for bated breath.
Somebody did ask, and I think this is the point where I was going to talk about this. If it has been longer than a month, if it's been in transit for 2 months, then you would probably ask the owning library to please, if they didn't find it, then cancel the transit and ask the owning library to mark it missing. You don't really want to mark missing somebody else's stuff. So ask the owning library to cancel the transit and either mark it missing or delete it, whatever they want to. But to get it off of your list. Otherwise, your list is going to be going on and on forever. If the long in transit item belongs to you and Sandy knew what the next slide was going to be, check your own shelves to make sure it wasn't reshelved without being checked in. That also happens. If it's not found, cancel the transit and mark it missing. If you didn't realize this for a couple of years and nobody's checked it out in a couple of years, it's probably just gone. Who knows where, then you can just delete it. Holds will be retargeted. Things that are coming to you are coming to fill a hold or to go back on the shelf. If you cancel a transit, mark something missing, and it was coming to fill a hold, the holds targeter will find another target for that hold.
Or it will move to hopeless hold.
Or it will move to hopeless if you were you had the only copy left.
That's sad.
And that is sad. And we're gonna talk about hopeless holds too. If the long in transit item doesn't belong to you, you have to throw yourself on the mercy of another library that they will cancel the transit and mark it missing. Otherwise, it will stay on your list absolutely forever.
See crying patron.
See crying patron. And then on one side of your paper, it says transit two, and this has been my experience. It's for some reason, the transit to lists are always shorter than the transit from. I got all the container ships there. Items going from you are going to fill a hold, or they're going back to the owning library to go back on the shelf. Then this disaster happens. Those of us who, I'm not going to say I'm obsessive, but I really like a nice, clean, nothing on it, transit from list. That transit from list, there were 20 items on, I may have truncated this to put on the paper. But here I've got the in transit from my Owensville branch. The start date is our migration date, and the end date is 2 weeks, 4 weeks prior to when I was running the report. And I sorted it by send time, and there's something at the top of the list that was sent 2015. And it's not my barcode. You can always tell with a list of barcodes, you recognize your own barcodes on there. So none of this stuff is my barcode. So these things need to contact the owning library and ask them to look for it. If they don't find it, ask them to please cancel the transit, mark it missing, or delete it from the catalog. And I am fully aware that I come from a large library with a lot of staff. Some libraries are running with 3 staff members. And the transit list is way down on the list of things that they think about keeping their library going. So I understand if something does not get cleared off the transit list. But that's the only way we're gonna get it off of there, is to contact this library and say, if you don't find it, would you please, just while we're talking about it, cancel the transit and delete it. Rhonda?
So this, we talked about earlier, this list also, if you start seeing multiple things on a really close date range, that's one of those times that it could potentially be a courier issue. If you've got 4 things all within a day or two, it's probably backed up with the courier as opposed to, you know, on somebody
Somebody's
else's
shelf without getting tapped in.
Yeah.
Right, that's a good point, and that's what Jane was just talking about. If you see a pattern of all this stuff that you sent on a date, even to multiple libraries, and it has not arrived where it was going, it could be a courier issue. It's not first in, first out like it's supposed to be at the warehouse. It's gotten stuck somewhere. Good point, but you see this gosh awful list. So let's help each other keep our list clean. When somebody contacts you and said, please look for this, and if you don't find it, cancel the transit and mark it missing.
If you give that other library 3 chances and they fail, can you just mark it that's for them?
Don't like to touch other people's.
I didn't say you like to.
And
I did say, like, if you have a lot of staff and they don't, aren't you really helping them in the long run?
You could offer.
Yeah.
Or just do it. I wouldn't even like to tell them. They're not gonna know if they're carrying 20. It's been done since 2015. They did not know.
Library issue, because I need a choice.
Second of all, I don't do any of this, so you're safe. All the CERT people are standing up going. Like another word I love to do. It's me. See, like, they know. I talk about another word. I don't do it. You may not be able to. I'll let we talk about it.
Well, that kind of dovetails into what I was gonna ask. So I
See.
very much agree with, some of us are very privileged to have enough staff to be able to do this, but So do you regularly run your transit to and transit from? Whose responsibility is it?
Responsibility of this. At my library, the branch managers are. That's one of their jobs. They're supposed to every week look at the transit list.
But I mean, you're doing both sides, the two, and these things are on someone else's list as well. I mean, I imagine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if, I understand it, you own it, if it's transiting from you, that seems like it's more your responsibility potentially to run that one. Like, I'm saying, if you only had time to run one of these, which one is
Wouldn't it be
more your
two?
responsibility?
Yeah, you really would need to do both of them
Okay.
because you're looking for, you're looking
It's
for
coming and
holes.
going.
Sure.
Yeah, you're looking for
Okay.
holes that aren't gonna be filled because they're coming to you, so they don't belong to
The
you.
transit from are your items that are going somewhere else.
No, it includes everything.
Okay, but the transit to are for your patrons' requests.
Or it's your
Or
stuff
the
that
other
have
one.
holes
We
filled
came back.
that other people can borrow, yeah.
I mean,
That's why I think it's both of them. You have to do both to and from.
so as one of those smaller libraries, and I've never really messed with this, but I have been told. Until they look at your shelf and I'm like, oh, sure enough, I found things on my shelf. Like if I have to pick one, like the first thing I'm doing is transit two. Because I've already been proven that. That my staff or someone has put an item on the shelf that didn't get checked in. So this I can knock out quicker in the long run than I could to from, but I could still do from like next up. I think they're both important,
So,
but like
but-
on the pedestal, I would put two.
I think what's better
Higher
to do is
priority.
do both lists, but then sort it by your home and look at what your barcode is. And then only care about your own barcodes, because then you can do it. You
Yeah,
can go look at your own shelves, but if you're looking at other people's barcodes, that means you have to contact somebody else to do the
Right.
work.
But we found other people's barcodes weren't in our shelves.
True.
So, yeah, I looked for both our barcodes and the other library.
That doesn't happen as often as your own stuff getting back on the shelf without being checked in, but we have all found things on the shelf. The spine labels don't even look the same, but just that, put it back on the shelf. So, and you can sort these lists by barcode, which is what I did here. You can see all of my own barcodes and go look for those things on the shelf. Even if I don't look for other people's barcodes on the shelves. But yeah, things are coming to you to fill holes and to be reshelved, and they're leaving you to fill holes somewhere else, your stuff. And to be put back on the shelf for things that you have borrowed, and sometimes things don't even go home before they get borrowed again. So my copy of Where the Crawdads Sing was not home for, zillion months. And I'm glad I'm hearing people say, I've never looked at it. Because that's what we want, for everybody to understand the transit list and its importance.
Well, and if everybody would just take care of their stuff, they would take
It
care of,
would
they would
take
take
care-
care of the other
yes.
side.
Yes,
So, do your own
exactly.
stuff.
Well, maybe do it at midnight, so. Maybe do it for your smaller libraries, maybe schedule it at the first of the month, this is what you're going to do, these are the processes that you're going to include. With your staff, and on the first of the month, this is what you're gonna look at this.
Just schedule a random day. It's the
Yes.
14th of June. I'll check.
And that's an excellent point, if everybody was doing it, and it was looking for their own stuff, then it would take care of the problem. I hate to say problem. The owning library should check its shelves for items long in transit. If not found, the transit needs to be canceled, and then the item marked missing or deleted. Again, this process will retarget any holds if you mark something missing or you delete it. And you see, when you cancel a transit, you have to follow up with another process. Otherwise, it's in limbo. It's not holdable, it's not findable, it's just last thing we know is in transit. Yes, Kate?
And so I have another thing that maybe Jennifer can write down on a list of things that would be helpful. That if you do find something or don't find something, whatever the case may be, and you mark it as missing or deleted, could that automatically trigger Equinox or Evergreen to cancel the transit instead of having to cancel and then mark something as missing or deleted?
Look.
That would be nice. A lot of times you guys cancel, you know, you check
Well,
over
but
the
you
end
mark
and
it
you
realize
realize.
Because if you miss one part of that, you really gotta go back taking care of.
No problem.
So if you want to see, cancel.
No, what she's saying is you have to cancel the transit and then mark it as,
Oh.
that's why I'm saying, if we just mark it missing or deleted.
I have such a.
See my bright yellow slide, deleting items does not complete a transit. That's like deleting something does not check it in off a patron's account. You have to check it in and then delete it.
You're doing two different processes from two different functions.
Yes. Yes. This is such a smart group. Just listen to all the ideas and
You should have just showed us your entire presentation first. They just answer themselves.
these instructions can be found on the moevergreenlibraries.org website in the circulation trainings material. So all this stuff that I've just talked about, there is documentation on the Missouri Evergreen website. Second topic, hopeless holds. These are holds that can no longer be filled because all the copies on the record are now in a not holdable status. The patron, the staff member performed a catalog search, placed a hold, everything's great. Then all the items on that record are either now lost, damaged, missing, or they've been deleted. This was something we used to have to wait for the monthly report from Equinox to see what had become hopeless. They were called unfillable holds then. But when Equinox added this feature to, I think that's my next slide. Made it possible for you to check hopeless holds yourself, and they named it hopeless holds, and we all started crying.
They just mentioned this before we went off in transit. I wanted to tell the catalogers too. I look at the hopeless holds report every month, even though I'm not a CERT person, and I check my stuff to see if I can merge any of those bid records, because if you merge a bid record with something that does have holds targeted or maybe it's hopeless holds, I don't know. I told you, I'm sorry. Anyway, I merge those things and then the hold retargets, and then it's fixed.
That's a great point, and having been a library that is new, obviously we have a lot of mismatched items or that weren't properly brought in
yeah.
because of the percentage of commonality that there has to be. So for those of you that are coming on soon or just coming on, that is a great point to be aware, because that takes care of 90%.
Yeah, because the hold is just on that one item where there's another bid that's got 20 items on it, and then you put your bid, you put your item on that item, and then you've got.
And then by golly, sky's the limit.
So then, when you come across that, like, let's say you got where the Redford grows, but you can't merge those two items because it's got, a difference in
Sure.
book height or
Yeah.
page count,
Right.
would you then contact the patron to say, hey, I can't get you this one, but I can put it on this one?
Well, that depends on, that's now on my CERT people. I do my cataloging stuff and that's what I do, my CERT people then would be in their hands. I've done what I can do, Now, if you're somebody that wears all of those hats, then go for it.
I just do them a favor and not get with the red ferns or if I don't.
I would say yes. If you know that the titles are similar enough, go ahead and cancel the hold and put them on the other item. But if it's like a large print versus a regular, then I would reach out to the patrons and you have a preference.
Yeah, Katie's advice is a great customer service way. So that way they're not waiting a long time and it's a bag and stuff like that.
Yeah, so if it is within reasonable doubt, this is definitely going to be the item that the patron would want, you can go ahead and do that.
What I would do.
Yeah, I would too, unless there's some reason the patron really wanted it with the introduction written by so-and-so. Otherwise, if they just want to read the book.
And sorry, as catalogers, those have to be on separate. I will die on that hill.
Things are way better than they were.
Yes, I know.
In 2014 when we migrated.
But those classics, you're always gonna have 60 legit bid records that it just has to be. Sorry.
That's okay, here's this girl again, once ago. Now it's a hopeless hold, so local administration, where we went for the transit list, local administration, hopeless holds. And it has a date again, a start range, and I've got my date there. And the hopeless date would be, okay, anything that's become hopeless between migration and today that I haven't taken care of, shame on me. And there were 3 things here for the Warrenton Bridge. I ran this on February 23rd. You see how long I've been working on this presentation? I am dedicated. And they all became hopeless the day before I was looking at this. And of course, the column picker, those of you from MCL, MLC. Column picker, you can choose whatever columns you want, but I've got a column here for the patron's barcode. So I will again find another target. Search the catalog for another record for the same or similar item, because there's nothing on this record now to fill this hole. The holds targeter targets an item on the record, fill a hole. If that hole is not filled in 24 hours, it'll target another copy on that record. If it's not filled in 24 hours, it'll target another one. Well, and it'll keep doing that around and around till everything is marked missing or whatever. Or if there's only one item on the record, then it's only got one option. So look for another record or something that's similar. See, I tell you what, everybody is great at anticipating what we're gonna be talking about. Find something similar, place a new goal. Edit the request date if it's a popular item. So back when we were doing when the crawdads saying everybody wanted that. And if somebody's can't get the whole they want and everybody else wants it too, edit the request date so they don't lose their place in the queue. If there's no other record, consider traditional ILL or purchase and cancel the hopeless hold. Yes, ma'am.
Going back to what Kate was saying, if she would merge records, does that automatically transfer that hold, or do you have to?
Oh, it automatically transfers the whole, every the whole thing.
It will transfer the hold if it has not become hopeless.
Oh.
Oh.
This is something that, here, let me point my finger at her now.
She's looking at hopeless bugs, actually.
Yes, because this is supposed to, if the last item on a record has now been deleted and a new copy has added, or if the last copy was missing and now it's been found, it's supposed to make this hold no longer hopeless. It's supposed to retarget that copy. But that doesn't happen. So if the status of an item on a record is changed to holdable, or if a new holdable copy is added, or if records are merged to put more items on that record, the hopeless hold will not become unhopeless. It will not become hopeful.
I've been wasting my time.
No, because if there, there's one item on a record and then there's no hold on it yet, it hasn't become hopeless. Then you've added more copies.
Is there a timeline for the hopeless? I mean, is it after 6 months that it becomes hopeless or?
No, it's when the last copy is deleted or marked missing or something, or lost. Wait a minute, I think Bethany had a question.
Well, not really a question, but you could do a title hold transfer from one record to another, and it'll keep the date that the request was made, so even if I'm putting it into a new record, it will put it back where it should. So I don't have to go in and edit the date. It saves a little bit of time, but you still have to find a new record and put it in.
There you go. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, so. Say as staff, we were putting a copy hold on for like our own item to do something to it, but we couldn't find it, so we marked it missing. If we can use that hopeless hold there, in case it comes back, like say we find it on the shelf, it's not gonna work. I don't know, because sometimes we'll leave those for a while until we decide to throw it back. So, and then we'll delete it, but, like once it's been missing for 3 months or 4 months, whatever, and we can raise the item. So, but it won't trigger that hold even if it comes back. I don't know. I have been wasting my.
It's another question, and forgive me, it'll sound really stupid, but I'm gonna ask it. So you are deleting a cataloging record and it pops up
are you sure you want to do this? This is the last record. Wouldn't it be nice if we had another thing that says, are you sure you want to do this? You've got a hold.
Yes, because then you would know right
That you can't
then.
necessarily, because maybe the record is, it needs to be deleted because the item's missing or damaged or something like that. That's why the cataloger wants to delete that record. But wouldn't it be nice if it said, oh, you've got a hold? You've got to, you should like retarget a hold on that record. Is it so, like I said, it might be silly, I have no idea.
That would be nice
Well,
because
I think I'm confused. You can't delete you can't delete a record that's got a holding on it, and it would only have a hold if it had a holding. Am I-
Okay,
but then when it becomes hopeless and you just want to get rid of it. And it said, then you get it pops up and says, this is the last item on this record,
right.
and the record will be deleted then. And you say, yeah, okay, that's great, but it would be nice if it said there's a hold on this.
Oh, I see.
See, so you would know, oh, I need to buy another copy.
But it might not even be your item, though, it could be. I probably can't think that it might be for a cascade.
Oh, the whole.
Oh, yeah, so,
Yeah.
so they're not gonna delete the item.
Might be silly.
But no, it's not silly, it would be nice to have that, and I see Jennifer's in here writing, she's typing.
Yeah, I am, and I'm thinking of warning, because you're not gonna be able to take, it's more complicated than take some sort of action.
Right, yes,
But the warning,
well, warning, something
the
to
warning,
well,
say,
you gotta
hey, by
hold
the
on
way,
this.
There's a hold on this, we'll delete
Because
it.
even if we deleted, even if it was my copy and I was deleting it, if there was a hold on it. That hold would still be out in the ether, just because I deleted it does not, according to your bright orange or yellow slide, it does not delete the hold.
No, it just becomes
the item
hopeless then.
Okay.
When you delete that last item and delete the record, it's now it's a hopeless hold. Well, these instructions are on the Missouri Evergreen Consortium website. Frozen, apparently it only works.
You have to stand on one foot when you.
Now try.
Yes. I gave you a. Circulation staff permissions. This is what tells the ILS what a staff person has permission to do. So when you create a staff account, you are giving your staff permission to do something. Tips for staff clients, that's what we call our side of Evergreen, access accounts. The account is only used to access Evergreen, so your staff account that you log in with in the morning, you should not be placing holds on that account, checking things out on that account. I can proudly say that the staff at Scenic Regional Library do not even know that that is a patron account. If your staff do know that, cool, but they should not be placing holds or using it as.
Does it do something bad if they do?
Yeah.
It's not, can we add that?
It's just more than a
It's inferior.
Okay, but it's not gonna like implode the system.
It will not improve the system, but they need to
Okay,
get
blame.
don't tell them, that, well, but it's business practice simply if.
What's happened at Trails is we've had some staff use their search accounts as, they're checking books out to themselves on their account. Well, then when it went to overdue, they couldn't do their search work on their search account because they had overdue. And we're like, no, so then if we're pushing, you can only check out, you can only put reserves on accounts that are tied to barcodes. And their search accounts are not tied to any barcode. So that's kind of how we've gotten around, but it locked them out of doing their work because they had overdue.
Because they were bad library.
So please in mind that when you have a staff using your choice, whatever reason they're using their work account for a personal account and checking out materials, that seizes, it doesn't seize it up, but that changes the nature of that work account. So if I'm dismissed and I have a stack of books at home that I checked out on my employee account, you can't delete my account and you can't cut off my access to it.
Oh, did you hear what?
You can cut off my access to it. But then now I'm a disgruntled patron who's been discharged, so there's gonna be a whole lot of hell to pay. But it makes sense, you don't use your company credit card for personal purchases. It's the same concept.
What if they're doing it though for work related issues? So I'm thinking of like, they had put a hold on, because they're showing up on my hold list. They had placed a hold using their work sign in, because they know that there is a problem. And they want that item, if it ever does show up, to come to
That's
that.
work written.
Yeah,
But she's saying,
But
don't
no,
do that.
I'm saying don't even do that.
Yeah, we have
You should
maintenance cards.
You should have an account that is for Warrenton programming. Wright City label issues, you know, and then place holds on those accounts, not your login. Keep them separate. And we recommend, well, point two, everyone with cataloging permissions needs to have cataloging certification. So you can't just use some, and well, we've been working on staff permissions anyway, so that catalogers have cataloging permissions, circulation has circulation permissions. If you have staff that do both things, then you can have more than one permission. But make sure that anybody with a cataloging permission has cataloging certification. And we recommend that everyone have their own username. You won't be expelled from the consortium if you don't. But if everyone has their own username, then when that person no longer works for you, you could just delete that account. And be disgruntled employee kind of a thing, they're not at home sabotaging the database for a 75 member consortium. If people share a username, then when somebody leaves, you're gonna have to change the password and teach everybody else the new password. So. I lost the power,
Oh, sorry.
So I think the cursor has to be clicked.
It does.
I've got 5 more days before I lose my power, so.
Try it one more time. See if you got your power, see if you got your power back.
See, okay. Progress to the next slide. There we go, whoops, and I progressed.
See, you're super powerful.
That's my superpower. There are, see, now cataloging people think they have a corner in the market of cats? No. I have a picture here, and I'm wearing cat socks. There are hundreds of permissions, thousands of permissions, millions and trillions and zillions of permissions, which means you think of look millions of cats. Circulation administrator has 148 permissions. There's another 75 on top of that. What I have given you there is a list that shows all of the permissions that circulation administrator has. All of the staff at Scenic has circulation, all the circulation staff have circulation administrator permissions. So you've got columns there, and all the yeses, yes, circulation has those permissions. There are some no's, so that means circulation administrator cannot do anything with TCNs. Circulation staff should not do anything with TCNs. I just talked about that. They don't have catalog certification. What we would like to do as the Missouri Evergreen Circulation Committee, take a recommendation to the executive board, is to see how many of our libraries are just fine with all of their circulation staff having circulation administrator permissions. And you're going to ask me, I have no idea what these things mean. Well, there is a website there on the back of the page. There's on the side, it's on the back of the page, that you can go to look and see what all of those permissions mean.
So we're looking for permissions that, like, say I have a certain person and they're used to be able to doing this, but it's not on this list, so,
More like step one, see if there's See if there's anything on this list you don't want your search staff to be able to do.
So would it be like catalog? Cataloging has cat 1 credentials and they have cat 2 credentials. Is there a need for a cert 1 credential and a cert admin credential? Or do we just move everything to cert admin? And we're trying to, before Jennifer and I go through any more headaches, we kind of want to know, I mean, and we'll do it, we're gonna do it one way or another. But do we want 2 levels or do we just want 1 level?
If everybody's fine with this, then we are going to recommend that all circulation staff be given circulation administrator permissions. So there's a document you can read what all those things are. If you would please, if you're fine with all this, you don't have to do anything. If there's something on here that you don't want your circulation staff to do, mark it. Then email your form to Rhonda, and I've got a slide with her email address, or send her an email and say, at this library, we don't want our search staff to be able to do blah, 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 blah. So we can come up with a list for a cert 1 level if we want to have 2 cert levels. On your handout there, unfortunately, the link has an underline on it, and you can't tell that between where it says permissions and list, that should be an underscore there. And I put Rhonda's email. Did I put her phone number too? No, I put her address. I didn't give him your phone number, Rhonda.
Do you guys want phone number? This is my
I don't
brain.
know, do you want us to?
Phone number. So I can give you the branch in 816-331-0049.
So we'd like that feedback, and those of you who are online, you can email me now or next Wednesday, between now and next Wednesday, but Thursday, I won't be answering. Let me, email me, everybody knows my email address anyway, ddisbro@scenicregional.org, and I will send you the file for this, so you can have this.
Can you ascertain that most, if not all, of the cataloging permissions have been marked as no on this list?
Yes.
One glaring things that I see, which that's awesome, but they don't have any holding options either. They can't even add a holding.
At a holding or at a hold?
At a hold.
At a holding, like
They can't put a book on.
you can't do a right, put a book on a, so like.
That's cataloging.
Yeah, that's
Something like
cataloging.
that.
Kinda good. That's kinda good.
Yeah, that, I would, yeah.
Yeah, we
Yes.
don't want to do that.
They can't, people with this permission can't do any, everything. It is possible to add something to this list. You can't take anything away from this. So if we give all circulation staff, circulation administrator permissions, we can't say, well, at this library, they don't want you to be able to do this one thing and remove that. We can't take one thing away, but you can add things. So at Scenic, when I add a new circulation staff person, I have to give them 4 extra permissions. I have to add, and here's how we do it. It doesn't have the permission I want for some of my staff. So in the staff account, under other, there's a user permissions editor. This is where you go to assign your workstations. So you have, when you create a staff account, you always have to assign a workstation. And that's also where the permissions are that you can. Below the working locations is the list of permissions. When I create a new circulation staff member account, I also have to add administer user bucket because we have hold groups at Scenic. And staff add the patrons to hold groups and they have to have that permission. Administer user bucket. So I add that permission. Our frontline staff do weeding and they delete the items after they've weeded them. So I have to add delete copy. And there are a couple other things I have to add. So you can add permissions if this doesn't have everything you want your staff to be able to do. But you can't subtract from the basic permission.
Aren't we trying to avoid that though? I mean, like, then I'm just gonna go give myself every permission. Which is,
You have, well, now, here's another permission thing. You can't give yourself permission beyond what you have permission to assign.
And admin.
Yeah, somebody, I'm an assistant administrator at Scenic, so I can do whatever I want to, basically.
right.
But not everybody can do that, and you can give permissions at different depths. So you can give permission at your branch. I don't know what the world of a sublibrary is, you are, well, bookmobile. Maybe a bookmobile, you can give permissions to your system. So I give all of my staff permission throughout Scenic Regional Library to administer user buckets. But if you just wanted them to do that at your branch, you could do it at a branch level instead. Or you can do it at a consortium level. Mind your manners there when you give people permission to do things at a consortium level. And the last slide is the people on the circulation committee. This information is also added. Survey or gun. So these people you can contact with circulation questions. Rhonda Bussey, right over here, his Cass County Catholic Library is the current chair. So any other questions?
Guess what? Okay, so I'm gonna throw my staff under the bus here, my library staff, because like, I brought up that you couldn't add holdings. Now, my staff, at all of my branches, if there's a donation that we already have in the system, they're allowed to add it. They would not be able to do that under these categories, but I feel like it would be wrong of me to just give them those permissions. Because they're not equal to what everyone in the consortium is, so it feels like they would need another level.
No, you are okay. To give your staff permission to do that at your system.
Okay,
Yes, you can do that, like I'm doing a delete copies. My frontline staff delete copies, and I bet there are libraries.
but we had talked about that being like a separate, almost cataloging, permission level where they had barcode privileges, you know, they could adding barcode.
And I guess that's super confusing. Why even go through this permission project if you're still going to allow individual libraries to modify the permissions?
Yeah. That was kind of my.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if we're trying to standardize, then we need to limit it from being.
Sorry. I don't know so much standardization as understanding what permissions people have, because especially when we moved from Mobius to Equinox, there were a lot of permissions that suddenly our circulation staff had that they did not have previously, and we did not know that. So it's just kind of about knowing what people are allowed to do and deciding if you're okay with that, or if you want to, you know, add anything or take anything, you know. I guess not take anything away, but add anything.
Well, the other thing that comes into it is functionality at your library. Who is doing what at your library and what permissions should they have? So we have a lot of people who have certain credentials and cataloging credentials because they're doing both. I don't necessarily see, this is my personal opinion, I don't necessarily see a problem with adding this one thing if that is the function of that staff member at your particular library. They don't need all of cataloging, but they need this one little piece that would typically fall under cataloging. This is my personal opinion. I'm not speaking for the consortium here, but I don't see a problem because it's about functionality, making it work at your.
But we have libraries that have, you know, say they don't, there's gonna be, everybody knows the admin password, so your point of you can't give yourself permissions, that goes out the door, because everybody has the password to the admin, their admin password or whatever, that they could add whatever permissions to whomever they want.
So maybe that's something to examine at your library then.
Perhaps I'm worried about my library.
Maybe any type of permission change needs to go through a committee approval process or, something like that.
We've always
No,
had the
it's like a
flexibility
consortium
to, like, for instance, in our library, we have some sort of staff who do it. It's the only extra thing they do. And we used to have a special login for them previously, where it was, like, this is your cert login, this is your cataloging login, before it was individualized. And we had a certain login, and that's how we did it. So we've always done it that way, and we wouldn't be keen to give that up, because that is how it functions in our library.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with if whatever works for your own library, but we have to plan also for growing and growing and growing and having libraries that essentially have carte blanche to do anything. I like what Katie says, if you're giving a permission at the consortium level instead of your own system level or something, I feel like there needs to be checks and balances.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah. Which is what I'm
Well,
working on.
what Diane was just saying is that she has to sit there and make sure she's not giving it at a consortium level. Well, maybe the individual system admin in the library shouldn't have the ability to give somebody permission at a consortium.
I never, I never knew that would be possible. I would've
Okay,
never-
if that could be controlled.
Diane.
When you look at your permissions, it's there.
That's it, it's you.
It's just right there.
Well, maybe we could just take that away.
Well, somebody has to.
Yeah,
Well, like, Steve could have that,
But you have to have somebody who has permission to assign consortium level permissions to do that, and not very many people have that.
Who needs it? I mean, who exactly needs the consortium level stuff?
It makes sense for it to be your committee chairs
So as a committee chair.
And that makes sense.
and your consortium employees. Or
Then why?
contractors, excuse me,
Right, so that's like
contractors.
just a handful of libraries, so why would the rest of them even have that ability? That seems like something.
Well, and seeing it and having the ability to do this are two different things.
Well, that's true.
Because you can see that, we can't see it anymore, but you can see that right there, it said consortium, but.
So if I was messing around in there and I saw consortium, could I, what happens if I click on it and I'm like, I wanna let
You
everyone.
have that, but don't touch the button.
Well, well,
At the bottom, yeah.
Right.
Should be.
Yeah.
It won't say, okay. Cause again, I don't, what?
it didn't say, but it doesn't
say if
you refresh your screen, you go, it didn't work, it's like, cause you can't.
No, I do think that there's that little green thing that comes up at the bottom, yeah, where it says, no.
No.
Okay, so short answer, you can't do it.
Right.
So this is a non-issue.
Okay, there you go.
Leave it to me to,
Muddy water.
Say you can't do it.
Permission for that.
you can just see her.
Well, and so wonderful Diane is giving us this presentation, but she would be one of the committee chairs, right, that would have that access. So she was teaching us how to do it because she does have access.
She's reflecting her power.
she could do it for her own system.
I can do it for my system,
Yeah.
I can give my staff permission to do something at my system
Yeah.
or at a branch.
Well, and as well as you know, that we talk a lot about permissions, a lot of ideas, but Liz and I whispered about your scenario where you give extra staff the ability just to add holdings. That we could even create yet another tiny little permission group that had just those permissions in it. So you're a baby cataloger.
Yeah, and that's what I had said, we had talked about having that permission level to have those,
So it doesn't live in CERC, it doesn't live in the full, you're not a full grown cataloger.
so it could be a secondary.
It could be a small.
You
just
can stop having permission.
And that's what we're trying to come up with, a permission group, so that you all don't have to go home with 200 permissions and each time you have a staff member decide which one of these 250 things you want them to do.
That's right.
You just really want to have an overarching, this is the best system for everybody. Assign this, add things if you want to. Nobody wants to go through and look at that for every single staff member.
Well, I think you just answered your own question, because you started with, is there a need for a separate circulation group, permission group? We have a circulation administrator, and evidently there is, that has the ability to do baby catalog.
Not yet.
Yeah, I think that there
No, no.
are two questions in there.
Okay.
Before we get to cataloging,
Right.
before Kate asks her question, there's the, do you need a basic cert, like a cert one and a cert two, that just do cert things? Cert to be even more simple than that, maybe cert two can override things and cert one can't. So if you say, you got fined, you can't check it out, cert one, you can't override, it. Maybe cert two you can, just as. So there's a, do you need that distinction, cert level? Then the other thing, separate and apart from that, would be if you had these extra things that you're doing at some libraries and not other, where you allow staff that don't do full cataloging permissions, but they can add their. Maybe that's.
What we've learned is with great power and great responsibility.
I would be a measure.
Anyway, the discussion can continue over lunch, I'm sure.
Thank you, Diane. Oh, Jim, no fun, Diane, no fun, go back up.
Oh.
No, there we go.
I'm sorry, Diane, I shouldn't laugh, but I saw the look on your face. Face, honey.
In recognition of Diane's passion and knowledge and wanting Missouri Evergreen to grow. You didn't let it go on, but you can do it. He said that, you can open it, you can, tell me what to. Really, it was a bear tech round, so. We are going to miss you greatly. Oh, I'm really gonna miss you greatly. Your knowledge, your skill, your ability to answer the questions, philosophically, and we're gonna miss you greatly. Stop it. Do it. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Oh, look at this. Oh. Missouri, it's got the Missouri Evergreen. What does it say? It says Missouri Evergreen Consortium thanks you for your guidance, leadership, philosophy, and vision.
Yes.
It's been definitely a highlight of my life. My career at Scenic Regional and working with the wonderful people throughout the state. It's been challenging work and very, very rewarding. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, our face.
Okay, so quick announcement, actually two quick announcements. We're gonna try to get back on schedule at 1 o'clock, so compress lunch. And they messed up our lunch order. So yeah, for a while there was no lunch.
I know.
But now there is lunch, and it's actually a lot more than what we paid for, so that's fried chicken and things like that, but I remember there was at least one vegetarian request, and so there are 3 vegetarian sandwiches. So please make sure if you request a vegetarian, you can get one of those, and yeah. So yeah, let's get lunch and be back at 1.
What is that one? What's that 1 o'clock, Steve?
1.
Aspen?
1 o'clock after, yeah.
Okay. I like it. Terrible dark.